Welcome to another edition of TokStocks. Today we're diving into the world of silver mining with James Anderson, Chairman and CEO of Guanajuato Silver Company. As Mexico's fastest growing silver company, they own and operate 4 producing silver mines, producing nearly 1 million silver equivalent ounces per quarter. Make sure to read our disclaimer, as this is not investment advice. If you like our content and never want to miss an interview, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Hey there, welcome to another edition of TokStocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have James Anderson, Chairman and CEO for Guanajuato Silver Company. I have a bit of a hard time pronouncing that one, James.
Well, yeah. Anyway, like I was telling you before, Kier, if you just say it really fast, that's probably the best way. But the people say Guatemala, right? That's no problem,
Yeah.
right? People say Guadalajara, right? That's no problem.
Yes.
We say
Yeah, without a
Guantanamo
problem.
Bay, right? That's no problem. So
Yeah, it's just
Guanajuato,
on me. It's just
yeah,
a
yeah,
problem
yeah.
for
If
me.
you say it fast, it's all a-okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate your time. I know you're busy, got lots on the go. Fastest growing silver producer in Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Well, I mean, we call ourselves that. I guess that I think if you look at how fast the company has grown, and if you look at the quarter-over-quarter growth in silver equivalent production, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a company that is growing as fast as us. We've done that by the purchase of one mine about 2 years ago, El Cubo, from Endeavor Silver, and then last year in August we purchased 3 mines, 2 additional production facilities from Great Panther. So now we've got 4 mines, 3 production facilities, and we're on track to do something north of 4 million silver equivalent ounces per year. So I think all of that works pretty well.
Hey, excellent. That's great. Well, before we get too started, too much into like your operations and the business, maybe for those of us who don't know you all that well, maybe you could talk a little bit about your background. How did you get into mining? How'd you get here? What have you done before?
Yeah, sure. Mining, I guess, has been in my blood for some generations. My grandfather was a mine foreman in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, and some of the great gold mines there. My father was a mining broker and financier for most of his career, and I kind of followed in those footsteps. I was in the brokerage business in Vancouver for about 20 years, and as you know, Keir, the Canadian brokerage scene, you pretty much cannot be involved with it if you're not involved in mining in some way. So that was a big part of the business that I was in, and at some point I decided that rather than raising money for other guys in this business, I thought that I could allocate capital better than a lot of the other folks in this business. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Hey, excellent. And how long you've been involved with the company, and when did you get it started?
So prior to it being called Guanajuato, it was called Vangold for many, many years. And when I took control of Vangold, it had fallen on some tough times. The stock was halted, not trading at about 3 cents. So I took control of that. I found out that it had really quite an interesting exploration asset in Guanajuato, and an exploration and development asset. It was a past producer. About 110 years ago, it was listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and that's the project that we call Pinguico. So we still have that project, although it's kind of become lesser in importance for us, and has turned into an exploration and development project. It's about 8 kilometers away from Cubo. And then within that time frame, we had the opportunity to purchase the El Cubo mine for $15 million from Endeavor. So we did that, and then the rapid growth that I described earlier has happened in the wake of that.
Hey, excellent. Well, thanks for a bit of an overview on that. Now maybe we could jump in a little bit in terms of you kind of touched on it. So you've got 4 producing mines. Is that correct?
That's
You've
right.
assembled You got started with one, which came with a mill, and then you've been able to acquire. So would you mind just sort of walking through? Are they all located in the same state, the same area in Mexico?
Yeah, they're not, but most of the assets are. Most of the assets are in and around the city of Guanajuato, Mexico, which is in the state of Guanajuato. The city of Guanajuato has a very long and storied history of silver and gold mining. The Spanish started mining there 450 years ago, and people have been mining silver and gold there pretty much nonstop ever since. And these assets are particularly long-lived. The Valenciana Mines Complex, that's the one that's almost right in the city of Guanajuato. It has been in production on and off, but mostly on for 450 years. Cubo has been in operation for 120 years. The mine that is off to the west called San Ignacio is a little different. It's relatively newish, having been in production for about 12 years, but it is on the main structure that was the first to be identified as gold bearing by the Spanish in 1548, I think. So all of these assets are long lived, and generally speaking, once you start mining here, so long as you continue to invest in the mines, you will continue to find more and more high grade vein material. The other asset that we own is a little bit different. This came with the Great Panther purchase last summer, and that is a mine called Topia, which is in Durango. So think about maybe 1,000 kilometers to the north in a different state.
Right.
It's also, whereas going to Guanajuato is very easy. There's an international airport that's about a 40-minute drive from where our mines are. Great infrastructure. There's a large city that's about 45 minutes away as well called Leon, and the Leon might have 4 million people in it. In contrast with Topia in Durango, Topia is in a very small town. There might be 5,000 people living there, way up in the Sierra Mountains, but it's very high grade. That mine too has been in operation for about 70 years. It was owned for 40 years by Peñoles, which is Mexico's largest mining company. So a lot of history to these mines. Generally, they've been underinvested in for a long time, and we feel it's our job to reinvigorate these mines with extra capital and extra excitement in a time where the silver and gold price, we think, are going to do very, very well.
Yeah, excellent. That's obviously my thesis as well. I'm a shareholder of your company, and appreciate the quick advancement that you've been able to sort of do and sort of assembling these projects. So in terms of your milling operations, you've got, I guess, with the projects being so far apart, you've got 2 operating mills. Is that correct?
It's 3. So within the Guanajuato area, there are 2 operating plants. One is associated with El Cubo, and that's off, we'll call it, as the road goes, about 12 kilometers to the east of Guanajuato. And then there's the Cata plant at Valenciana mine in Guanajuato proper. And then San Ignacio off to the west has always been a mine without a production facility. So we truck that material, we truck that ore from San Ignacio about 25 kilometers by road to the Cata plant.
Excellent. And then you've got the mill that's in and around Topia. Is that correct?
Yeah, quite so. So that the mine or series of mines at Topia provide ore to the plant there. That's right.
And each of these projects also have 43-101 resources and reserves. Is that correct?
They do. They are all classified as historic currently. These are some of the rules that they're associated with 43-101 compliance. When we purchased the El Cubo mine and mill, that came with a historic resource that we made compliant by having a PEA done by Bear. The rest of the resources that we have, and they're outlined on our website and our corporate slide deck. But those are historic in nature, despite the fact that, like the San Ignacio resource, for instance, was made in 2021 by Great Panther. We will be systematically upgrading those resources as we go. The first one that you are likely to see is a new upgrade at the San Ignacio resource, which we're compiling right now. And we hope to be able to deliver that to the marketplace within 90 days or so.
Excellent. And in terms of the ownership structure of these projects, do you own them 100%? Is there like partnerships or JVs associated with any of the mines?
We own them 100%, and we own them 100% without any attendant royalties associated with them. And I'll just delve into that for a moment. You know, many of the other smaller mining companies raise money through the issuance of royalties on these projects, and it's really hard on the finances of the companies going forward. It sounds great going in because you'll see a news release that says, you know, that the company has done a non-dilutive financing. But I think that is disingenuous because, generally speaking, it is the most dilutive financing that one can do to the value of the shareholders. What you're taking is the top. If you're doing an NSR, you're taking the top cream of the production and delivering it to someone else, and you do that for all time normally with these royalties. So we have, so far at least, knock on wood, you know, I might have to eat crow at some point in the months ahead if we are forced to do some kind of a royalty financing, but nonetheless, I don't care for them. I think it's destructive of shareholder value normally.
Well, that's good. That's definitely separates you from the pack, and I'm sure there must be a lot of royalty companies knocking on the door looking to finance you with producing assets.
We have had a number of conversations like that with a number of the royalty companies, and I you know, despite my my proclivity not to do a business deal with them, I try and stay polite.
Yeah, you always got to, I guess, leave options open. It's been a bit of a hard time in precious metal and junior resource companies, as you know. We've had a couple of times over the years some really tremendous bull markets, but they don't last all that long.
You've made a lot of different points there. Let me try and touch on a couple of the themes there. I agree. I think that the metals have performed really well, especially silver. So silver has this dichotomy of being sometimes a precious metal and sometimes an industrial metal.
Right.
And I like to quip that when people ask me which one it is, you know, when the price of silver is going up, it's both of those things. When the price of silver is going down, it's neither. However, if you look at the price of zinc, for instance, as a proxy for base metals, zinc has gone from $1.40 to about $1.05 in the last 3 or 4 months.
Right.
That does not look good, and I think that it is. I think it's a. I would have expected the price of silver to back up further than it has. It has not, and it leads me to believe that one of the big component pieces of the supply demand picture for silver that we really like is the extra demand that you're seeing from photovoltaics for solar panels.
Right.
It works out to about 14% of all mined silver right now is going into solar panels. That is supposed to expand to about 25% in just the next couple of years. And I think that it's quite inelastic, you know, vis-a-vis the economy, because there's so much government support to continue to have an expansion of solar panels. So if the governments are going to continue to provide tax breaks and money for the whole world to build solar panels, I think that demand is going to necessarily buoy silver prices. So that, coupled with and I think that, for me at least, I think that silver really kind of stands out as having the best of all worlds and a really great chance of having a continued bull market in the price.
Hey, excellent point. And I know from reading your website and your corporate presentation that you highlight the industrial usage of silver as well, especially in the decarbonization of sort of the economy here through solar panels and other technologies that require silver. So it's
Yeah.
got a little bit more use than just sort of gold from a precious metal standpoint. So excellent. Maybe just going back to your kind of mining process, do you guys use contract miners for the actual sort of like underground operations, or do you own your own mining equipment?
Both. Um, the new Mexican mining laws um, uh, are not friendly for contract mining. And I think in Mexico and in Mexican mining circles, this is quite disappointing because the independent mine contractor in Mexico has a long history, and they are an important element of Mexican mining per se. However, we are trying to both from a legalistic standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint, we're trying to wean ourselves away from some of the contract miners and some of the contract haulage people who we use at different places in our mines. Some of that's more difficult to do in others, especially at Topia in Durango. There's a lot of contract mining that we use. Because it's sort of part of the fabric of the community, and that's how the mine has grown over 70 years. So for us to change that immediately, just from a social perspective, that's just not going to happen.
Right. Well, thanks for touching on that. I wanted to bring it up because that's definitely been that's definitely been a bit of a theme that's been kind of running through sort of Mexico and other South American sort of countries, is a little bit of an adjustment in terms of some of the laws and the process for mining.
Mm.
In terms of maybe like you touched on in terms of like how many ounces you're sort of producing on an annual basis. You do it on a silver equivalent sort of basis. Could you sort of shed a bit of light in terms of what your sort of annual sort of revenue run rate would be? I know that it fluctuates based upon what you get for your metal, but I guess if you were to average out a sort of price, what sort of run rate you'd sort of be looking at?
Right. So we have published guidance that we would do somewhere plus or minus 4.5 million silver equivalent ounces this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is our current guidance. Although I guess I'll state right now, we might have been slightly optimistic in that. We'll see how the next 2 quarters go. The one thing that separates Guanajuato Silver from a lot of the other silver mining companies is that um, about 50% of our revenue comes from silver, about
Right.
40% from gold, and the rest from base metals. The mines in Guanajuato are exclusively silver and gold mines. We get no no base metals from them at all. The lead and zinc that we do produce all comes from Topia in the north. But that's an unusual mix for silver mining companies. And in fact, there's a lot of silver mining companies that call themselves silver mining companies. They've got the word silver in their name, but really they are more precious metals, and they're more they're more base metals with more silver, with more lead and zinc than silver.
Right.
So our mix of metals is a little different, and certainly more precious metals rich than some of the other companies.
Yeah, I noticed some of your, I guess, gold grades are fairly impressive just on a gold only sort of grade. You're looking at in some cases over 2 grams per ton, and you really call yourself a silver company, so that's pretty impressive.
Right. Well, the majority of the revenue comes from silver,
Hmm.
even at these prices, and so for me, I think it's fair to do. I know, even some of the bigger silver mining companies these days really are gold mining companies in disguise. So it's a comment on how difficult it is to have a big silver mine.
Right.
Um, there's been a lot of people discuss over the years and lately the fact that's I think the number is 75% now of silver production in the world does not come from silver mines. It comes as byproduct from
Wow.
from other mines. So if we have a situation, which I was alluding to earlier, that we could have an increase in the price of silver, I think that silver could go a long way. I mean, I think you could see silver at $30 or $32 an ounce without there being a real supply answer, a real supply response to that higher price of silver.
Right.
I don't think that you're going to put a copper mine into production just to get the byproduct silver out of it. So
Right.
it's quite inelastic that way. So I guess we'll see what happens, but it seems to me to set up a very bullish and positive situation for the metal itself.
Yeah, excellent. And the last couple of years have been pretty busy on the M&A front for you. Is that something that you're going to continue to look at? Are you continuing to look and review projects, or are you pretty happy with what you've got and it's really about optimizing what you've currently got?
No, it's both really. I mean, we do have a lot of optimization of our current projects that need to be accomplished. Certainly Cubo and Valenciana and San Ignacio, for that matter, they were all mines that were shut down when we purchased them. It's not easy to go back into a mine that's been closed down and reactivate it. So we need to do that. But to your point, Kier, we've been very actively growing the company for the last 2 years. We're not big enough yet. I'll just state that categorically. We need to be a bigger company in order to be able to live through the ups and downs and the vagaries of the mining business. It is a highly cyclical business, as we all know. So to be able to protect ourselves from that, we need to be a little bit bigger and a bigger corporate entity. How we get there exactly, I can tell you that we have a lot of ideas, but no plans. You were asking whether we continue to review our different opportunities. Yes, absolutely, we do. And we will see how those opportunities avail themselves to us in the future. What I will say is that I think that we've unmistakably done a good job in acquiring assets inexpensively so far, paying $15 million for El Cubo. That is a mine that changed hands for $200 million in 2012, and then buying 3 mines and 2 production facilities from Great Panther for less than $15 million, and being able to bring all of those operations back into production so swiftly. I think we've done a good job in identifying things that can actually be accretive to shareholder value very quickly. Whether we can do that again or not remains to be seen. So we'll have to wait for the next chapter.
Hey, excellent. So just in terms of yourself, do you spend much time, you're presently sitting in Vancouver there in your office. Do you spend much time down in Mexico at the projects? What's your sort of management style, and how active are you with the operations and meeting some of the team?
I do. I spend probably close to half my time in Mexico, mostly in Guanajuato. I haven't been able to travel as much to Topia. It's like I said, it's difficult to get to. It's a Cessna ride from the city of Durango, and but nonetheless, I spend about half my time in Mexico. I visit all the mines. I go underground. I talk to all the managers, and to the best that I can, be involved in decision making. Perhaps not day to day, but certainly broad decision making for all of the mines. We have a team that has a lot of experience, all quality mining engineers, both from Ramon Davila, who is our president and in charge of all Mexican operations, Mario Valdez, who is our chief operating officer, Mario Garcia, who's just joined us as VP of operations, another very, very experienced mining engineer, and Hernan Dorado, who is my original partner in the company, who now has a role of chief strategy officer, but also is a very experienced mining engineer in his own right. So I don't want to give you the impression that I go down there and tell everybody what to do, but I do go down there and I want to know exactly what we are doing. And every once in a while, I come up with an idea that everybody looks around and goes, yeah, actually, that kind of makes sense. So I want to be involved, and I think that it's good for morale there to have the CEO there on a regular basis, so that they see and they understand that there is a public company forum and a public company group that is very interested in what's going on a daily basis.
Hey, excellent. What's it like working down in Mexico? You enjoy it?
Well, let me talk about Guanajuato rather than Mexico. Guanajuato is a beautiful old colonial city. It's got a real European flair to it. There's a real tourist feel to the city. There's nice hotels. There's good restaurants. And that has helped us to attract a very high quality level of Mexican mining worker. You can get a job in some dusty town in Sonora, or you can come to Guanajuato. I tell you, it has the best climate in the world. Here in Vancouver, it was often 30 degrees last week with all the smoke in the air. You're quite high up in the mountains, even in Guanajuato. So typically, highs of 20, 22, 24 degrees last week, lows of 13, 14 degrees. So the climate's very livable. So yeah, I love it there. And I hope that the company can be sustainable and I can continue to spend a lot of time down there.
So are you enjoying what you're doing? I know, obviously you've talked a little bit about, hey, we got to get a little bigger to deal with the boom and bust cycle of things. Obviously, it's been, I guess a bit of a challenging environment for raising capital. You guys have done a very good job of that. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Is it what you thought it would be like?
It's hard work right now, and I don't want to paint a picture that's better than what it is. I enjoy the challenge. I like the mines. I love the miners. But yeah, it's hard work right now. And in terms of capital raising, I think you're absolutely right. We've built the company over the last 2 years at a time in a very challenging time to raise mining capital, period. So we've been undercapitalized through a lot of this. I think we have done, and I appreciate the kudos. I think we have done a reasonably good job of attracting capital to the company. There are lots of other quality mining assets out there that have gone completely dry in terms of their ability to draw capital. There's a lot of different reasons for that. And frankly, there's a lot of good reasons why investors just have no interest in mining right now. And I think that comes full circle to some of the challenges. The current national government in Mexico, they are no friends of the mining business, but I think we can say that to just about every federal government on the planet, right? I mean, everybody agrees that we need mines. Everybody agrees that we need mines for the new green economy, but nobody wants them in their country and nobody wants them in their own backyard. So something about that has to change. I'm not exactly sure what. So there are challenges right now dealing in Mexico from a governmental interaction standpoint. There are also challenges in Mexico right now because the Mexican peso has appreciated by about 20% over the last 12 months. So about 75% of our expenditures are denominated in pesos. So that too is really hard work, and to a large degree, that has negated the small incremental gains in the price of the precious metals for the last 12 months for us. So all of those things are challenges. I enjoy a challenge, but sometimes it can be a little too much of a challenge.
Sure. So do you guys have do you guys have any of your production sort of like hedged in terms of like pricing, or are you able to take advantage of whatever the pricing at the time of production would be?
Yeah, so we sell almost all of our concentrates to an outfit called Ocean Partners, which we have a really good relationship with. They provided some debt capital for the company, as well as some equity capital, which is unusual for offtake providers. We sell about 80% of our concentrates to them. We also sell concentrates to Samsung. Ocean Partners allows us to sell forward up to about 6 months in advance. So at the times in the last, let's call it 10 or 12 months, when we see a sharp run up in the price of silver and gold, we've taken advantage of that and sold some of the production forward. I don't like to do a whole bunch of that and don't like to do it for an extended period of time.
Right.
But taking advantage of the big swings in silver, especially, over a 4 or 6 month window, I think that makes some sense, and we've managed to do it very effectively.
Well, thank you. That's good detail there for sure. Thanks for a bit of a viewpoint into that. We don't really hear too often too much about that. We just hear, hey, we sold our production. Not exactly certain who to and how all that stuff sort of works. So thanks for the color. In terms of you guys just put out your quarterly financials, showed a bit of a loss in terms of your mining operations, as well as obviously the overhead and some of the other expenses related to the company. Could you maybe give a little bit of a viewpoint into that for shareholders and other prospective investors?
Yeah, for sure. Again, we're a startup company. We've been in production, well, in terms of processing for less than 2 years, right? So we've still got some growing pains. We continue to grow the company in terms of production really rapidly. I think, with our current assets here, you'll see that kind of level off here in the next little while, and hence the need, I think, if we want to continue to be Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company, I think, we will need necessarily to get a little bit bigger. From a financial perspective, though, we need to do a little bit better. But if you look at the rapid nature of growth for our company, added capex that is affecting positively our bottom line, we continue to spend money aggressively at all of the mines in order to do that. And just as a couple of examples, just recently we reactivated the main shaft at Valenciana called the Cata shaft, which brings material up to the Cata plant. That wasn't operating when we bought the asset. We started mining and simply started trucking material out of ramps. But using the shaft is way more efficient. It's way more cost effective. So that's only been operating since, I think, let's say early to mid-May. In conjunction with that, we've put in a locomotive system with rail cars, which again wasn't really operating, and we didn't have the facilities set up when we started mining in December of last year. But that's operating now, and again, more cost effective and more production. So just a couple of examples of some of the capex that we're spending in order to make the operations better and more streamlined.
Hey, excellent. Thanks for that. So perhaps in the future, we'll see some benefits from your capex spend now through some different sort of quarterly results. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I mean, I think categorically that's the case. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat it. We've got other headwinds.
Sure.
Primarily the headwinds of a local currency that, rather than depreciating, which is normally what we expect from Latin American currencies, it has appreciated by 20%, and it's that is over the last 12 months, and that is a 20% increase in 75% of our local expenditures. So there are
Right.
challenges, but I think that we're meeting those challenges, on a day by day, week by week, month by month basis.
Okay. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the primary goals and initiatives of the company over the next 6 to 12 months. Like what would be some catalysts that investors, shareholders should look for? Again, nothing specific, nothing, forward looking that we're going to get in any trouble, just kind of high level 50,000 foot view stuff. What sorts of things should we be watching for?
Well, I would go right back to the first comments that we had, the first fun comments that we had at the top of this interview. What's the name of the company? It's called Guanajuato Silver. It's called Guanajuato Silver for a reason. What I saw a few years ago in Guanajuato was one of the great silver mining districts on planet Earth that had been carved up into a bunch of different ownership packages. And it was my view then that what we should try and do is to consolidate the whole district. Over 2 years, really, we've done a pretty good job of that, consolidating about 40% of the mining claims, having 3 mines and 2 production facilities. We can continue to do more to consolidate the district. And I think that of all of the different opportunities that are available to us in central Mexico right now in the mining business and in the silver mining business especially, consolidating more of the Guanajuato district, that really gives us the more bang for our buck. Just, as a brief segue from that, the major structure that goes through the middle of the Guanajuato district is called Veta Madre. It is called the mother vein. There have been over 2 billion ounces of silver extracted from that structure over the last 450 years. There's an enormous amount of exploration potential that can be had as we bring these mines and the whole district really into the 21st century for mineral extraction. So I think that there's a huge opportunity there for a small silver and gold mining company called Guanajuato Silver to be able to grow, to continue to grow exponentially within the district.
Hey, that's great. Excellent. And we wish you continued success with that. Could you give us a little viewpoint into maybe the cap table, how many shares are out, a little bit about who owns them?
Yeah, so with the financing that we did, 2 weeks ago, let's say 3 weeks ago, there's about 340 million shares issued as we speak. Largest shareholders, our largest single shareholder is Fidelity, the Fidelity Silver and Gold Fund out of Boston. They have acquired their shares as part of this last transaction and on a block trade that we were able to arrange for them, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, let's call it like that. So having Fidelity, that's one of the America's largest silver and gold funds, as one of our cornerstone shareholders, I think that says a lot about the company. Endeavor Silver continues to be a large shareholder. That's virtue of us giving them a block of shares in partial payment for the El Cubo transaction. But they also participated in a private placement a couple of years ago and wrote a $3 million check to the company. So I think that gives you a good handle on what Endeavor thinks about the way that Guanajuato Silver has been going about our business. Mermacan Capital is a small precious metal investor from Connecticut. Dan Oliver is the fund manager. Dan is also a shareholder, but also a director of our company.
Right.
Dan's very much involved in certainly all of the financial decision making of Guanajuato Silver, and he's been extraordinarily helpful in directing other capital towards the company. Eric Sprott's a shareholder. There is a private group, Australian group, that put a mine back into production in Australia a few years ago. They're a large shareholder. So what you'll see is a sort of a mosaic of generally family offices and medium-sized funds that are the main shareholders and the main drivers. The stock trades well, and despite the fact that the shares are down somewhat, if you compare it to any reasonable comparable in our industry over the last 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, 6 days, we compare really well to the field in terms of, call it small to medium-sized precious metal equities.
Hey, excellent. And was that some of the shareholders? Was that some of like you're doing based upon your background, having been worked in the financial community and brokerage business?
Yes, sir. I consider that to be a very large part of my job. So, yes, I spent a lot of time in Mexico and I spent a lot of time in the mines, but I spent a lot of time doing stuff like this, communicate rightly or wrongly, right? I mean, over a beer, we could probably dissect whether this is the right way to organize capital for the mining business. But from a historical perspective, this is what we do. And
Yeah,
that is a big part of my job, is to communicate with shareholders, with potential
sure.
shareholders, with past shareholders about what we're
Right.
doing, how we're doing it, what we're trying to do, what the problems are, what the challenges are, and how we're trying to meet those.
Well, that's excellent. Well, thank you. And obviously, Dan Oliver's quite a famous name for within our industry. So, congrats on having him
Well,
aboard as a director.
Dan writes about credit expansions and credit bubbles better
Right.
than anyone on planet Earth. I like to tell people that I've only known two geniuses in the world. Dan Oliver is one of them. He's a very, very clever guy, and we are uh, blessed to have him as a director and a part of the organization.
Yeah, that's a pretty good vote of confidence right there. He's very well known, obviously, for precious metal mining sector. He's a stop that real companies go and do when they're in the New York area. So good stuff. Are there any upcoming events or sort of developments that investors should be on the lookout for? Anything key that you might want to tell them?
Well, I think in terms of stuff that's in the public domain, I think that the continued execution, the continued ramp up of our operations, and the continued betterment of our business. We spent a lot of time on it. As I said, there's a lot of bumps in the road, but I think that we are relatively easily um, examined in terms of our both our financial and our production performance quarter on quarter. So I think for people to continue to look at our growth and how we've built the company to date so rapidly, I think that's what you'll want to judge us on going forward.
And maybe just to sort of wrap up quickly, is there a quick sort of pitch? Anything that you want to sort of wrap up with? You'd like to leave people knowing that I didn't ask?
Well, in terms of a quick pitch, we are Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company. Mexico is the country that produces vastly more silver than any other country on planet Earth. If you like silver, if you like that whole pitch about silver being needed to make computers, to make cell phones, to make EVs, electric vehicles, but also just regular old hydrocarbon combustion vehicles. We need silver for every electronic device in the modern world, and especially for solar panels. So if you like that angle, I think that silver offers a particularly unique investment thesis going forward. We're the fastest growing silver mining company in Mexico. So I think, despite all of the challenges that might be in front of us, I think that anybody that wants to put some money at work in that sector, we are it.
Well, excellent. I really thank you for your time, James. It was wonderful to meet you on camera here, and we certainly hope you'll join us here for for additional interviews as you make advancements with your business. As I said, we're a shareholder. We're obviously backing you and want to see the company continue to sort of grow and grow into its sort of again, you've just assembled these things and had to restart them and optimize them. So work has really only just begun. We look forward to seeing what the future holds. So thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you're busy as could be.
Keir, thank you very much. Thank you for your support as a shareholder, and I really enjoyed our dialogue today. Let's do it again.